Firstly, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. My name is Reese Gregory. I'm the commercial director at Effective Communication, which is a PR and communications agency based in Cardiff. I've been invited here today to kind of share my experience and our company's experience of using LinkedIn. And over the years, I've been very lucky enough to work with hundreds of different clients, and I think at our last count, on average, we manage about 45 LinkedIn profiles for our clients every single month, the majority of which are company pages. But we also manage the profiles of some of our clients as well. And here's just a few logos of some of the organizations that I've worked with. Again, some of them you might recognize. We work very closely with the comms and marketing team at Acuity. For this morning's session, I'm going to be very much focused on your personal profiles and developing those. So the outcomes of today, I'm going to help to make your profiles more visible, get seen by more people. I'm going to show you some of kind of the engagement techniques that we use, and I've got lots of hints, tips, and some of the tools that we use as well to help you find and connect with the right people. For those of you joining this morning, if you wouldn't mind keeping your microphones muted, that'd be great. I've got some time at the end as well to take some questions. I'm not going to be able to monitor the comments in the comments section and chat until the end. So feel free to either hold back those questions until then or post them in the chat and I can pick them up at the end. Perfect. Now, if you've gone on any sort of similar courses in the past, people are very quick to shout some numbers out at you, aren't they? Kind of bigger the numbers, the better. But I don't like to do that. I've got some impressive numbers here, but I want to focus on what really matters to you. And some of these stats might be numbers that you may have seen for the first time. So I've just got some numbers here. So this is about the Acuity company page. Follower growth over the last 12 months. It's been around 20%, and there's been more than 350,000 views of that content as well. And most of that content is being viewed by people in senior positions and primarily from the legal sector. But again, a couple of things here that you may not have seen before. This is one of your highest, actually, this is the highest reaching post that has been posted over the last 12 months. Again, you might recognize this one. This is your most liked post. So again, you've got some of the team here that have recently qualified as solicitors, and it's a piece of content that's done very well. Most clicked, so kind of clicks when it comes to social media content is very interesting, because as you can see here, there are no links for people to click, but platforms such as LinkedIn will actually almost any click that you do is added into this figure. So maybe you've clicked on one of the tags or hashtags, that's counted as a click. But these posts do quite well because what we often find is people are very nosy. They either want to try and find themselves in group pictures or they want to see who else had been there. So that's why this is done really well. And here's this is again the most commented post of Acuities over the last 12 months as well. And again, somebody else qualifying here. You can see a bit of a pattern in the posts. Now, I've borrowed a slide here from a bigger presentation that I do, but typically this is the type of content that works really well. So I will often get asked by clients, how can I make a piece of content go viral? And it's usually because of one of these three things, if not all. So if you post a piece of content like the content you've seen from Acuity, and people can relate to that situation, perhaps they've remembered the first time that they've qualified, something like that. People will react to it, like it. Case studies do well for exactly the same sort of reason. Or how often, if you're social media users yourself, how often have you seen a post and you tag a friend or a colleague? Again, similar sort of dynamics. And then you have content that kind of provokes an emotional response, reaction to something. So again, you typically see this with, if you see a piece of content and it makes you happy, sad, makes you laugh, makes you cry, you're reacting to that content. So if you go and post something and you can kind of provoke one of those responses, it naturally does well. And then you've got content that people find helpful, how-to guides, top tips, links to blogs. They might not be the pieces of content that you would get, say, 100 or 1,000 likes on, but looking at the kind of the numbers behind the scenes, that's the information that people respond to. So just to kind of bear that in mind. And then some things they might find interesting. A good third, and actually Acuity breaks this figure. Most of the post engagements that you see on, say, the Acuity posts comes from the people on this call today. And I've put in some figures here, and I guess this is almost like the backstory to why it is that I'm here speaking to you this morning, that you are Acuity's biggest marketing asset. That's just a fact. So I think I might be covering the numbers slightly in the bottom corner of the screen, but this is 30-day stats for the page. So reactions are up more than 70%, and reposts, shares of that content, is more than doubled. And I think it's probably I'd say it's not a coincidence that this is because of the launch of My Digital Lawyer as well. And I know the team has been encouraged to interact with those posts. So it just goes to show the difference that everybody can make. And again, this statement might not come as a surprise to anybody, but content that has something really visual, usually an image, high quality photograph or graphic, typically gets better in engagement. And video posts even more so. Although I know through conversations that I have with my colleagues, it's very it's debatable on why this is. So actually, one of the most engaged posts overall over the last 12 months is actually a video. And again, I think it's because people will click things. As you can see, I've clicked Steve's name here. People might click their link, hashtags. They might react to the post. They've clicked a play. They've probably started it a few times. And all those interactions make this the most engaging post. And then for today, I'm not suggesting that anybody goes off and spends, say, the next half a week posting content. We find kind of a little and often approach works the best, and those little interactions over the course of a week can make a huge difference. So these are actually my figures here, just to kind of prove that point. A few months ago, I kind of wanted to kind of demonstrate this theory to another group. So over the course of a week, I spent about 20 minutes of my time just responding, reacting to a couple of posts here and there. And as you can see, it makes a huge difference. So before we get into kind of the crux of kind of LinkedIn tips, I just wanted to briefly talk about this, because a first impression is usually something you think about when you go and meet somebody for the first time, maybe a new client, maybe you're interviewing somebody, that when you go and meet them for the first time, you look at, how are they walking? How are they dressed? What are they saying, and how are they saying it? But I'm a big believer that kind of the first impression this day and age happens much earlier in that process. So if we were in a physical room together today, I'd probably get people to kind of show me kind of a show of hands. But I'm pretty certain that most of the people on this call has probably Googled somebody before meeting them, maybe after meeting them at most. But the point is, you've Googled them. And the chances are that when you have Googled that person, you probably come across a similar view to this. You might find other pages about them, say the Meet the Team page here for Claire, or you'll certainly, or most certainly, come across their LinkedIn profile. So it's really important. And the mindset that I kind of want to change with people on this call today is to just stop and think about how others might perceive what your profile looks like. And again, this is one of the main reasons why, and I haven't had these stats from yourselves, but I can pretty much guarantee that some of the top performing posts on your website are related to your people page, because everybody does it. And as I was saying there, LinkedIn is such a powerful website. The chances are that when somebody is searching for you, they're going to come across your LinkedIn profile. So is it how you want it? It's kind of what I put to you guys. So one of the first tasks I would encourage everybody to do is to do a bit of an audit of kind of your online presence. And it could be something as simple as starting with a Google search to see what comes up. But I would encourage that you kind of locate and document all the profiles that you find. I've put a tool in here. It's called NameCheck. It's one that we use as a team to see kind of username and kind of website address, domain availability. But you can also use it as part of doing your own audit. So typically you'll obviously use the same name or maybe username across multiple platforms. You can quickly identify where it might be taken. And when you do go and view those online profiles of yourselves, do me a favor, do yourselves a favor, and make sure you're signed out of those platforms when you do it. Because as I'm sure you can imagine, if you go and view your LinkedIn profile and you're signed in as you're going to get a much different kind of view than what kind of a colleague or a customer might find. And over the years, something that's kind of crept up quite a bit are these kind of unofficial pages and fake pages as well. And maybe if you had a MySpace back in the day, you might be surprised at kind of what kind of is still left behind from your digital footprint. So please kind of make a note and go and do that. A question that always kind of gets usually raised in these sessions are around professional and personal profiles. Obviously, in the context of we're talking with LinkedIn, I'd keep it as professional as possible. Now, what you typically find is if you do have a Facebook account, for example, you typically want to keep that private, don't you? You want to kind of lock it down, check your privacy settings. You just want you and your friends and family to be able to view that content, which is spot on. Whereas LinkedIn, and the way in which I'm going to be talking about it, you want it to be found. You want to come up in search results. You want people to look at your profile and think, do you know what? I really want to connect with that person. The other thing you find is this kind of alienation of connections. So I can give you a very basic example. My example, in fact, that I'm really into cars and technology. Now, if I go and post that on my Facebook account, nobody really cares. Might get one or two kind of likes or responses from some of my friends, but the chances are they don't care. And the same almost goes for if I go and post, say, content that I would typically share on LinkedIn, and I go and stick that on Facebook, it just doesn't it doesn't work. So just again, bear that in mind when looking at your profile. Think about what kind of you want your personal brand to be. How do you want to come across? So getting into kind of tips now of improving your profile. So those of you that use LinkedIn already, and from having a quick scan of some of the names as you were joining, I know most of the people on this call has a LinkedIn account already. And even if you don't, you'll probably be very familiar with this view. So this is the home screen. You can pretty much find everything you need from it. So when you first log in, but there's a couple of things on here that you may not know about. So just to kind of bear in mind, one I will come back to in a short while, which is this on the top left where it says profile viewers. Okay, you get some really interesting stuff from there, but I'll talk about that in a moment. The other thing is if you scroll down on the home feed, you eventually get to a button called Discover More. Now, if you're kind of a long time user of LinkedIn, you've probably connected with maybe far too many people. You've probably joined a bunch of groups that you don't do anything with. You've probably clicked to attend events. Maybe you followed some hashtags. Maybe not. But if you click on the Discover More button, this kind of unlocks everything for you in one place, and it allows you to manage it. So you can leave groups, you can disconnect with people if you wish. But this is a really good point. And this is probably one of the annoying things that we often find about LinkedIn. They hide things. So this bit, unless you knew where it was, you're not going to be able to find it. So definitely worth having a bit of an audit as well of your account. Now, as I said at the start, my primary focus this morning is to talk about your profiles and getting those kind of into shape and optimizing them as much as possible. Now, because we are talking about your personal profiles, you ultimately decide what it is that you want to share and how much information you want to put on there. So I'm not going to go into kind of all of these sections. I'm just going to pull out some of the most important bits today, but you're in control of this. And if you decide not to take my advice or just some of it, then that's absolutely fine too. But I do want people to kind of bear in mind that you have a box called shared updates. So any public kind of interactions that you have on the platform. So if you react to something, if you comment on something, share, post something, even an article, people will be able to find that very easily. So when you go to somebody's profile, for example, this is mine, I've picked on myself, there's this activity box, and you can go to anybody's profile and go to their activity box, and you can see what kind of they've been up to. Basically, everything you do is public. So just kind of keep that one in mind. And I guess you can go from one extreme to the other. You might decide to share so much information, you end up oversharing, or you go too far the other way and your profile ends up looking something like this. Now, again, if we were in the room, I'd ask for kind of a show of hands and invite some comments. But just to kind of put this question to yourselves here, would you trust this person? Does this look like a trustworthy individual? Is Simon Gregory even real? Is he the managing director of Google? What does this tell you? And I think this day and age where there is so many fake profiles, I don't know about you, but I'm very unlikely to connect with this person. I can't see a picture, I can't see a cover photo. Maybe they've decided not to share those items. Maybe it is completely fake. So, and I think this is this is why it's really important to go and view your own profiles, but not to be signed in. So you can see if you are sharing too much information, or maybe you've got settings on or that is preventing people to find you. So the important bits that I really want to focus on are these. So these bits of information here is what people are going to see first, and you find it comes up in LinkedIn searches the most. So, you know, I'd say it almost goes without saying, high quality, well lit photograph, usually face on, it's just of you, people can see you very, very easily. I've put in the dimensions here. So if you're having trouble resizing your profile photo, or if you're taking another photo and want to kind of resize it, you could use something like Canva, a tool that you can kind of set these things to. The same for cover photos as well. People usually miss these off. But I'd say the third point here, so I'd say high quality photo, you need a cover photo and your headline, so the bit directly under your name here. But I've actually pulled together my own profile photo guide. I've obviously made this up, but you know, professional photograph, head and shoulders pick for LinkedIn. I've tried to jazz mine up with this white line thing to make it look a bit more techy. Your profile photo that you'd usually have for your Facebook account, maybe it looks something like this. It's usually you're at home, home environment, out and about. And then maybe for Instagram, maybe you're a bit of a foodie, a tech expert, or you're into your fitness. That's kind of your typical Instagram photo. And then you might have other photos for other profiles that you you might have. So let's take a sip of my water. So these are photos of some of your colleagues. You may even recognize yourself in some of these. So I've had a good look around to see what I could find. So as you can probably pick out here, these are probably, you know, some of the photos here are fine, but they can obviously be optimized further. So you'll often find, say, this top left photo here, if it's been taken from a camera, maybe it's been resized a few times, you usually find there's a bit of a quality loss. You then have other photos here that, and these are profiles of accounts from people that say they work at Acuity. You might have people with no photos. I found one profile that actually had a logo instead of a photo of themselves. I found one of a gentleman on his motorcycle as well. Or you got one here. Again, you might depend on your computer size, your screen size. You might have to squint. But I think there's somebody playing golf in one of these as well. It could even be St. Mellons Golf Club. Anyway, or you've got photos here that have quite clearly been cropped from another photo and the dimensions are a bit off. A photo up here on the top where you've got light shining across your face as well. Some darker photos, and then you've got some photos here with multiple people in. So obviously their name might give you a bit of a clue to which one it is, but you know, you can see how it can create some confusion. So go off and have a look at your own profile photos and see what you can find. Now, this other section here that people often miss off their profiles, but when you go and visit a person's profile, you go and visit yours, this is the biggest bit of content people are gonna see. And so many people waste this space by not using it. Lots of lots of the people at Acuity are really good at this. So I've just picked out a few examples. Got Claire's profile here, using an Acuity banner. Steve's as well. Declan has got a really good profile. I'm not sure if Declan's on the call this morning, but he's obviously using the banner here for My Digital. Lawyer's pretty good. He's got some other good bits on here too. But these are your own profiles, and you decide what you put as your cover photo. So it'd be really good if you could kind of get behind one of these campaigns and maybe use the My Digital Lawyer banner or one of the others. But I think as long as you have something here, I think there's nothing worse than not. So, for example, this is one here. Now, your colleague here may have decided in their privacy settings that they don't want to show their photo or cover photo to people that aren't connected with them. As you can see, I'm not connected here. So they might actually have these things. But I guess the trouble is that if you come across somebody's profile and you can't see them, it almost becomes a bit like that Simon Gregory account that I showed you, and you begin to question if this person is perhaps real or not. And then moving on slightly is this headline section. So people often miss this as well, or don't use it perhaps how they should. So when I say headline, this is the line directly under your name here. So you can see mine is set to PR agency director. But so often people will just put in partner, manager, director, executive, and it doesn't really mean a lot. So my recommendation here is to try and be a little bit more descriptive. So I've picked out a few examples here. So this is just a search that I did on LinkedIn to prove this point. So when I said the most important bits to get right, your photo, because ultimately it comes up in search results, and it's much smaller than what I showed you a moment ago. So if you do have a darker photo or a lower quality photo, if you thought a minute ago it was difficult to work out kind of who people were, it's going to be impossible at this size. You can see under, say, Beverly's name here, she's got that headline there. Hers is partner at Acuity Law. You got Christopher's as well, and Declan's here. But you can see from the other two on here, they've actually been a little bit more descriptive. Declan's, for example, has got commercial and technology, Acuity Law written in there. So not only does it stand out more, it might be a little bit more relevant to the person that is searching for kind of expertise in a particular area. But by, say, Declan and Christopher putting those additional keywords in there, they are more likely to come up in search results relating for those words. So if they weren't there, again, less likely to be visible. And then the profile URL. So this is actually hidden. You don't really see this all this often, but this is the website address to find your LinkedIn page. So, and you can find it just by going into the address bar, but you can also edit it here. So for example, mine here is linkedin.com/in/my name. Whereas by default, LinkedIn has a habit of putting in additional characters, numbers, letters, and things, and all sorts. So this is really important for two reasons. One is, if it's just your name, it's pretty easy to remember, right? So if you're out networking or you're doing something and it requires you to say, do you know what? If you just go onto my LinkedIn profile, you'll be able to see that article that I posted. Oh, by the way, here's my address. Very easy peasy to go to. Whereas if you've got a bunch of characters in it, good luck remembering that one. The other reason why this is really important is, earlier on when I showed you that search results for Claire. Now, Google has a number of kind of ranking factors that it uses to determine where it puts that kind of entry in a Google search result. And one of those factors is the link. So by using your name, if somebody was searching for Rhys Gregory, and in particular, if somebody was searching for Rhys Gregory and LinkedIn, I am now more likely to show up for those keyword terms by making sure it's as clean as possible. So I've got a couple more examples here to show you now. So again, I've just grabbed some of the links to some of your colleagues' profiles here, and you can see straight away where it's put in these additional characters. So imagine being at a networking event now and having to remember some of these. Daniel's one down here. So I think Daniel's profile, he's put in ACCA in the same line as his profile name, which is why it's added it here. But you can also see he's also got the digits after it. The bottom link here, I believe, if I remember correctly, his name is James as well. As you can see, it doesn't say James. So it's not going to stop his profile from, say, coming up in search results, but it certainly won't help. And then moving down the kind of page a little bit, the next important section is the about section. So this is your opportunity to kind of, I've put in here, kind of tell your story. So if people are using this, people will often misuse this as well. So people will mistakenly just talk about their current job and say, look, I've been at Acuity now 5 years and everything else. But actually, that isn't what this is for. This is your opportunity to kind of summarize and kind of your kind of collective experience in one place. I've actually broken one of my rules here, where I've actually written in a number. So if you put in a number for anything, you're going to have to change it. You know, next year it's going to be 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. But this, like I said, this section is really important, because when you go and read a website article, you go and read a news article online, and you probably read the first few lines first, and then you probably make a decision whether or not you can continue to scroll down the page. The same thing here. You know, this is your opportunity to make it as compelling as possible for people to know they found the right person. Also helps, again, with keywords too. The next section down, which I know from looking at your profiles, I think I found, can't remember how many profiles I had a look at. Must have had a good look at maybe 30, 40 of your team's profiles. And out of that number, I only come across 2 that were using this. So I mentioned how when you post a piece of content on LinkedIn, you share an update, you comment on something, share a post, something like that, and how it comes up into that activity box. So that activity box will always be there. But what you can do is you can feature content, so you can almost pin notable pieces of content to that page. So this is great. So you could use this for, if you've been in the news and there's an article or something you've done, maybe you've published something and you're really proud of it, you can pin it to your page. So one of the first things that people see when they visit your profile is that. So it doesn't get lost in one of your past shared updates. People can see clearly that piece of content. And you can add, the most common one is links, but if you've added articles, or if you've done a really good post, a normal LinkedIn post and it's done well, you can pin it here. So I won't kind of dwell on these too much, but some people like to kind of link to their kind of online portfolios, if not an article, or one of your colleagues here graduated, I think, a couple of years ago now. But this was obviously a standout moment for her. It's had an incredible reaction, 35,000 reactions here and 1,000 comments. So she has pinned that piece of content to her profile because she is proud of doing it. And it also then means that when either of these people share further updates, these kind of pieces of content remain out there. And when it comes to kind of work experience, so I said about that about section, and you don't need to say, I'm at Acuity, this is what I do at Acuity. This is where you can place it in. So again, be selective on what and how much work experience you add in here. I probably wouldn't go far as back to your first job out of school or your part-time Saturday weekend job. Just put on your kind of relevant kind of work experience here. And if you do want to add in detail, this is the bit to do it. And I've not spotted this on any of your profiles, so the team do this really well. But when you do add that work experience, make sure you select the correct company page here. You can see it's highlighted as a link. Another really good section that people just seem to not include is a skills box. So great opportunity to showcase kind of your transferable skills that you've collected. It also acts as a bit of a keyword dump as well. So by adding in these skills, so again, I've taken this off my profile, digital marketing, online marketing, and there's loads of others, that when somebody is searching for somebody, a digital marketer in Cardiff, I am now more likely to come up for those search terms because I've used them. It's as simple as that. The added benefit here, of course, is kind of a trust element. So people can endorse you for these skills. So it's not just me saying, oh, I'm really good at X or I'm really good at Y. There are other people here that are saying, actually, Reese does know what he's talking about when he's saying these things. And you can take this up to the next level as well with recommendations. So again, it's not just me saying, oh, look at me, look how great I am, and I've got all this experience. Getting recommendations from your work colleagues, maybe some of your clients or people you've worked with in the past, is a great way to kind of help build that trust element. Getting recommendations is very interesting. So you can, when asking for recommendations, you could do it the LinkedIn way, where it basically says it prompts you to say, who do you want to send the request to? Oh, I want to send it to Toby in our team. I think Toby's listening anyway today. So it'll send a message to Toby and ask Toby. Reese has asked, can you write him a recommendation? I think pretty much every single time I've used this feature of LinkedIn, people ignore it. People don't respond. People don't care. So I always say that if you're looking to get a recommendation, email that person first. Hi Toby, I'm just in the process of updating my LinkedIn profile. Really hope you don't mind. Remember that project that we worked on last month, and we worked on launching My Digital Lawyer. It'd be great if you wouldn't mind writing me a recommendation on LinkedIn. And people usually respond to those emails. The other thing that you can do as well, which has worked really well in the past, is you write a recommendation for that person first. So I'll pick on Toby. I could go off and go, oh, do you know what? I really want a recommendation of Toby. I'll quickly write out one for him. and then I'll ask for one in return, and usually that works. And then you've got other sections here. So kind of in the early days of LinkedIn, you never had any of these prompts. You'd have to write it all into that summary section. But now if you've got awards, personal awards, or maybe company awards that you've contributed to, you can add them in here. If there's articles that you're proud of, have been published, you can add them in here too. And again, it's like when people add their kind of voluntary experience to LinkedIn, there's absolutely no harm whatsoever. So if somebody happened to be looking for somebody that's really good in digital marketing in the third sector in Cardiff, all of a sudden you've now got a chance of coming up in those search results, and the same would work for yourselves too. Now, privacy settings are really important. So got to see this as a bit of kind of Facebook with your friends list. So you probably want to keep that private. So this is what I'd recommend you do. By default, anybody that visits your profile can go and see who you've connected with. They can literally almost scroll through your address book. So in your privacy settings, you can actually kind of close it off. So people can see that you've got, say, 500 plus connections, but it's not clickable. People can't actually go through your address book. And this is the setting that you need to do and check on. I'll be circling this presentation anyway. So I've put in all the links. So if you can't quite find it in settings, you can be able to jump straight to it. And then you've got this other thing as well, which if you are a user of LinkedIn, you'll probably know about this. That when you go in, that when somebody views your profile, you can see who's viewed your profile, that type of thing. And the same obviously goes when you go and view their profile, they'll be able to see that you've been looking at their profile. It all gets a bit, but the important thing here is to remember, so you can actually change that. So you can almost hide. So you can be completely invisible. So when you go and view somebody's profile, you can hide yourself so you don't come up in that list. Or you might choose to share a little bit of information, but not your name. And you can see the variations here on the screen. However, what I would say is, if you choose not to share any information here, you will then also be limited by the information that you see. So if you decide to hide, then LinkedIn isn't going to show you any info when people come and view your profile. So, and there's even more settings that you need to kind of go off and view. So for here, for example, you can decide which parts of your profile are publicly available. So remember what I was saying about sign out of LinkedIn and go and have a look at your profile and see what comes up? This is the bit where you can change. So when you're going to edit your profile, you can edit the visibility of those sections. So what I tend to do, and again, this is your profile, so you decide what it is that you want to share. I usually leave the headlines in. So so my job title, the company I work at. Sometimes I leave my education in, but then I hide the actual detail. And I do that for kind of a couple of reasons. The first one being is if somebody was looking up me in Google, either based on my current company or past company, I want to show up for those things. So I need to make sure that content is publicly visible to Google. And then when people do come to my profile, I don't want to give everything away. other than the ability to message me, I wouldn't want people to have all my information. I want to prompt them to connect with me. If they want to find out more about what I do, and perhaps how I can help them, I want them to have to kind of make that kind of leap and invite me to connect. If you give it all away, why would somebody bother? You've then got this fairly new feature here, and I think from all the profiles I viewed from the Acuity team, one person, which is featured earlier, is using this, and this is this ability to add a custom button. So when you click, say, the pen icon, which you'll see on your profile, and you can edit your profile. If you scroll to the bottom, you've got the ability to add a custom link here. So this could go off to the Acuity website. It could go off to My Digital Lawyer. It could go off to another professional profile that you might have on a different website. You might have your own blog and you want to link to it. This is where you can do that. I'm not going to cover it in this session, but we use something called Linktree, which you can send people to, and then you can have multiple kind of buttons, and it's like a bit of a landing page. It's really worth exploring if that is of interest, or feel free to message me and we can chat about it. Until a few months ago, LinkedIn had something called creator mode. So I've kind of put an X through this because it's no longer called creator mode, basically. And the bits that you won't now get are these hashtags. You see, it says talks about content strategy, public relations. That bit is now, they've got rid of that feature. However, the creator tools that you can briefly see here around newsletters, a follow link, and LinkedIn Lives, they now do exist, and you find them in your dashboard. So there's the link to get to where these settings are. But do you remember right at the start on that home page, and I said, oh, if you click on like profile viewers, that's where you can get to this. Otherwise, again, fairly hidden away, but these features still exist. One of the newer things to look out for is this kind of LinkedIn's version of verification. So you're probably very familiar with kind of Twitter in X's blue tick. And now Facebook and Instagram are doing something similar. This is LinkedIn's version. And I think when I first verified my profile about maybe 18 months ago, something like that, not many people were doing this. So you could make your profile stand out a little bit with having this little like shield tick icon going on. But lots of people are now doing this. I guess the flip side is going back to kind of trust, and with there being so many fake profiles out there, it's probably quickly becoming getting to the point where you want to verify your account now, because otherwise you're not verified and you'll stand out as not being a verified account. For those of you that are interested in doing this, it basically requires your passport. You have to do it via your mobile phone. It scans the chip in the back of your passport, and it will prompt you to do a little video and say a couple of lines to try and verify it. It might take a couple of goes. It didn't work first time for me, but that's kind of how to get verified and get this badge in your profile. I think Declan had one on his profile that I showed you as well. And then unlike myself, if you're clever enough to know multiple languages, you can now translate your LinkedIn profiles as well into those kind of native languages. So if somebody's using LinkedIn in a different language, they're more likely to see kind of your profile. So just bearing that in mind. Although when I last checked, Welsh isn't on there unless they've added it like extremely recently. Welsh isn't on there. And then I've got a few tips here on creating engaging content. We can sip of my drink. So posting content on LinkedIn is very easy. Again, when I first started using LinkedIn, there were none of these prompts. It wouldn't tell you any of these things. Now it really, really helps you. So whether you're on your mobile or desktop, these are some of the options that you're gonna get here. So you can either just do a text post like you normally would, or put in a link, or if you're hosting an event for Acuity, you can post events. You can do polls as well, little voting things, and you can even add documents, which is different to many of the other profiles. You can also follow, as it goes through a few steps, but if you were looking for help in a particular area, LinkedIn can help you find those experts. And you do all of this from this posting box here. The most common posts, though, that you are likely to do are these. So you're probably more likely just to put in a bit of text, maybe a link. You've got 3,000 characters, but I wouldn't suggest trying to use all of those. Videos, so the length varies depending on if you're on your mobile phone or on your desktop. But again, I don't think I've ever seen a 10-minute video on LinkedIn, so bear that in mind. The one that is a bit different is this kind of the ability to share documents, PDFs, so you can upload PDFs directly to LinkedIn, and this is what they look like. So this is one that our team created here, and it is a PDF and it's uploaded. People call these carousels, because essentially what you can do is you can click through it almost like an ebook, and people are getting quite clever with these. And as you can see here, we've put in an arrow to tell people, look, there's more information here, kind of go this way. So these work really well. So you might have kind of other kind of maybe adverts or guides or booklets that if you are able to kind of publicly share them, then this is essentially how they're gonna look. And this content does really well, almost ticks that information box we were talking about. This I'm not such a fan of, but if you click on the option to celebrate an occasion, you get these prompts. So kind of welcoming new team members, if there's an anniversary, if maybe you or somebody else recently had a promotion or joined the team. Yeah, these are just kind of ideas, and I don't ever use these default pictures. Always use your own. But if you're stuck for ideas, LinkedIn can help you a little bit. Voting polls are a little bit different as well. I've seen a couple of examples when looking at some of the Acuity team's posts, and I thought to myself, do you know what? Instead of asking people to kind of comment below, if they just popped in a couple of options into a poll, they could work really well. They're quite basic and limited, as you can see here. You don't get many options, and you can only keep it open for 2 weeks, which is probably plenty. But it's just a different way to get people to engage. So instead of people thinking, oh, I'm going to have to write out a really long comment here, you could just get them to click a button. As simple as that. And then kind of taking it a step further than just posting content is this: making sure every time you post, you've got a good quality photograph. And if you haven't got a photograph, you might have a graphic or something else as well. So like I said, this has been created with a tool called Canva. Very easy to use, but you want to tag people in businesses as well. So as you can see here, there's a few examples. They get highlighted in the text, and although there's no optimum number of characters or length to these posts, I usually find, get the point across and give the information that you want to get over almost as quickly as possible, in as least fewer words as well. I've put in some tips here about if you are putting paragraphs of text in, you can do these double line breaks. So tag in people and businesses. So if you're mentioning a business or a person, maybe you're welcoming a new person to the team, something like that. This is the opportunity where you can tag them. So lots of people are doing this already, but if you're not, it's very simple to do. You just put in the @ symbol, you start to type in the company name or person's name, and then you can select it from the list. The advantage of doing this is that the person or company you're tagging will actually get notified. So if I tag, well, here's one, I'm tagging Peters, but if I did a post about Acuity, great to help out with the Acuity's launch of My Digital Lawyer, something like that, seeing as it's a hot topic. If I tag Acuity in that post, the comms team here will pick up that Rhys Gregory is talking about them, and it should, depending on what I've posted, it may prompt them to share that content with their audience and thus give me an even bigger reach. Hashtags, also very interesting. So I've got an example here where I put that post in there. Again, if I was in the room, I'd probably ask around to make sure everybody was clear on what a hashtag is. But as you can hopefully see it here, that you usually tag topics. So to help kind of group, say, if I'm talking about networking, or I'm talking about, actually, let's use the example on the right-hand side here. I went to a talk, it was really inspirational. So I've hashtagged inspirational. So that, as you can see there, not only highlights the word, it makes it into a clickable link. So if you then go and click inspirational, my piece of content is grouped together with other people's content who are also talking about inspirational topics. It's as simple as that. But hashtagging can also help the reach of your posts. So again, got the example right here. I've hashtagged inspirational, and at the time it had 6,500 followers. So obviously it's not guaranteed, but for others that are interested and are following this topic that I might not even be connected with, they're more likely now to see my piece of content because I've put a hashtag in. People often get stuck for hashtag ideas, so I've just quickly created a very basic table here. If you go to an event or business awards, they usually have one. So ask, and this is why they want you to use their hashtag. They want to see the conversation around that event. Usually find awareness days. People more so on Facebook and other platforms use kind of throwback Thursday, and a couple of others, again, just mainly to get you started. The really interesting thing though is if you want to see if anybody's using or following a particular hashtag, use this link here I've put in here and just change the bit in red with the keyword that you want to put in there. It's just very interesting. So I've picked on an Acuity post here from last week. Maybe it was from Monday. Very recent post, as you can see. So it's got a bunch of hashtags in there. And what you usually find is you either want to hashtag a word because you just want it to stand out. You actually don't really care if anybody follows it or not. You just want to highlight a particular word. So in this case, maybe it was smart law. You wanted that to stand out. And then you've then got hashtags that have a huge following, and you think, I want to use those because I want to increase the reach of my post. So legal tech here, 64,000 followers. So yeah, you might use it because you think it looks cool, but actually you can find ones that people are really using and can help boost the reach of those posts. Another kind of hot topic of conversation are emojis, and kind of love them or hate them, they do seem to have a place. So quite often when I use emojis, I use them sparingly. I might just add stuff around headlines just to make it a bit more eye-catching. If I want to do kind of almost bullet points, you could use checkboxes. And then if there's a call to action, you can add them in there. I've wanted to add this in because we at Effective, we champion kind of making everything as accessible as possible. And if this is of interest, we can do a follow-up session just on accessible content. But for now, I've just pulled these bits out specifically for LinkedIn. So if as an organization, you also want to make everything as accessible as possible, then you can extend that to social media use. So for example, when uploading images, you have the option to add alternative text. And this is basically just a little description of what is in that photo. So if somebody is short-sighted, and perhaps maybe they're using a screen reader, or if they find things difficult to see, a screen reader will actually read out these bits of information if you've added them in. If you haven't added them in, they might have no idea what it is that you're showing them. Hashtags, you should do this anyway. It's called camel case. So if you've got a hashtag, because a hashtag has no spaces, instead of just cramming the two words together and then having somebody to try and work out where the first word ends and the second word begins, you use camel case, so capital letter at each start of the word in the hashtag. It also helps with screen readers as well. By using these capital letters, although both words are together because it's a hashtag, a screen reader will read them out separately. It knows where to kind of stop and start again. The emojis one, I'll come on to a second as well. Very interesting. Won't make a few of you smile, I'm sure. But links. So LinkedIn and all these other platforms now have built-in link shorteners. So back in the day, when you say only had 120 characters on Twitter at the time, you'd be like, oh my God, if I go and put in this huge link, it's going to take up all the characters. So you would use a shortener like Bitly to make it smaller to use less characters. But all of these platforms now have these kind of features built in. What I would say is avoid them. So not only from an accessibility point of view, because a screen reader, again, would have to read out all those funny little letters, and they'd be all day. It'd probably take, it would take a lot longer for a screen reader to read a Bitly link compared to a longer link, believe it or not. But the other thing is, especially where there's not a lot of trust on online content. So when you get like scam text messages or messages, they will typically use a URL shortener because they want to mask where it is they're sending you to. So I know lots of instances where people won't even click a Bitly link anymore because they're too afraid of where it might be taking them. So maybe just something to bear in mind. And similar to images, you can add captions and subtitles to videos, which isn't only good for accessibility, but I've not got the stats here. But more and more people will consume like social media video content in silence as well. So that's good. And then emojis and their meanings. So a screen reader, if you include an emoji, will read these out. And let's face it, like the top one, for example, people do this as kind of thank you, don't they? They respond to something. I do it all the time. But a screen reader would read it out as hands pressed together. And I've put in a few others here, which I don't need to read out, I'm sure. So with some of this in mind, I'm just going to show you a couple of posts, and I won't invite comments on it this time around, but I just want people to kind of stop and think and look at these posts, and they mostly are doing things really well, but maybe from some of the points I've said, have a look at them and see if you would maybe do anything differently. So there's a couple here. I've picked on a post here from Claire. You can see she's tagged Acuity Law, which is brilliant. But have a little think about maybe what Claire might or could do differently with this post. In fairness, Claire has a fantastic following, and her posts always do really well anyway. But you could probably optimize it a bit further, can you? And then I've got one here in the top right corner from Hugh, where he's reposted something from the page as well. And just have a look at them, see what's missing. Okay. So just to kind of finish off this section, really, when I was talking about in using good quality photos, sometimes, whether it's the subject matter or something else, the photo doesn't tell the story, or it doesn't look very good. So you can now use tools such as Canva to help create some of your social media content if you're stuck. So for example, if you've been to an event, instead of just posting up a picture of the speaker, which I'm sure would do well, you could go one step further and maybe add a quote to it. You don't need to do these things, but again, if you really want to kind of take this seriously and kind of go the next level again, this is some of the things I'd kind of recommend for you to do. I've got some kind of fairly generic post ideas here as well. I wrote the one out on the left, but kind of deal completions, as long as they're at a stage where that information is publicly available. Networking events. So when you think about some of the posts at the very start, some of the top Acuity posts, you could probably replicate some of those very easily when you're out and about. The same for like the behind the scenes stuff as well, and maybe congratulating colleagues when they have qualified, or maybe they've been promoted. That content does really well. And I'm aware there is an Acuity social media policy as well. So I'd always kind of double check to make sure you're adhering to that as well. And if you don't have time, if you come onto here and you think, do you know what, I would love to be able to write out content, but you just don't have time, then it might just be something as simple as sharing a company update. And you don't even have to add a comment to it. If the one thing you do after today's session is go to the Acuity company page and click share, repost, that's that would be amazing. I'm sure the team would really appreciate that too. And then this is just a basic formula that we try and follow. You can't always follow it, but if you're trying to work out how you should structure a LinkedIn post in particular, this is kind of what we follow. Headline, you get kind of straight to the point. Secondary information, the benefit to the reader, and then maybe there's a link in there. So I think I've taken that particular post and I've recreated it here, and you can see kind of my version where I've changed the headline. I've put in a bit more info and a call to action. But there wasn't anything wrong with the previous post. It's just, again, if you have the time, what can you do to just kind of take it to the next level? And these things you can do yourselves. This is very interesting. So when you share a post on LinkedIn, you can decide the privacy of that individual post. So you can decide if anybody can view it, so it's completely public, or if you want to keep it just limited to your connections, your friends, if we're talking in Facebook terms. But the advantage of this is if you make it so that anybody can view it, you can share it in emails. If you've got an X account, a Twitter account, you could share it on there. And if they go and view your post on LinkedIn and are signed into LinkedIn, you'll be able to see. You'll get their stats. They'll be included in the numbers. Something that not a lot of people do, so I'm not overly focusing on this at the moment, but LinkedIn has its own kind of blogging platform. So if you want to take kind of your content game to the next level and actually start writing articles, you can self-publish things very, very easily. Obviously, just make sure you're also adhering to the Acuity guidelines. And this is just an example here that I posted, just so you can see kind of what it looks like. It's a blog. I get asked this question all the time: the best time to post, and there's no really kind of right or wrong answer. So this is data from a tool that we've used, and they analyze it says there 130,000 posts. But typically you find content in commuter times work really well. So people sat on a train, a bus, they're walking to somewhere, people are always on their phones. Sometimes you find content later in the evenings as well, when people have a bit more time. Works really well. But ultimately, you'll get the data from your own posts. So post when you are able to, and you'll be able to see if it does really well. But again, for those of you that kind of want to take things a bit further, but before you kind of implement anything I've said, do a bit of a benchmark. So you can kind of monitor how much time and effort you're putting into things. So these are just my suggestions here to write down. How many LinkedIn connections have you got at the moment? How often are you getting requests to connect? What's your average post reach if you're posting content? And then have any of the conversations you've had on LinkedIn resulted in any sort of kind of meetings or, for new business development? Write those things down now. So when you do go and make those changes to your profile, and maybe you spend a little bit of time optimizing those profiles even further, you can see kind of the value you've had back. Here's just an example here of the type of analytics you can get from your posts. So again, this is just one of mine here. And there's some more filters as well. You can have a look at job function and so on. Used to get even more data on these things, but I guess for privacy reasons, they're kind of whittling this down. But as I've always said to all of my clients, there is no better platform than LinkedIn to get data. You don't get any of this data, say on Twitter, if you are posting to Twitter, X. And then these are stats you can get for free. So I've mentioned it already, but at the very beginning, when I showed that kind of home screen, and I said, look, take note of that number at the top left corner. If you click that, these are the stats you can get for free. So you can get even more stats if you have a LinkedIn Premium account, but everything I've showed you today, you don't need LinkedIn Premium for. So get some numbers there. Other tools, again, you might not need to take it to this level, but if you really want to be active on LinkedIn and don't have the time, there are tools like Buffer that you can get subscribed to, and you can schedule content to go out. So you don't have to sit there and go, oh, I need to post at 2 p.m. or 5 p.m. You can basically let the tool do it for you. AI tools, these particular ones, I don't think are very good. But if you just want some ideas, use them. So the one on the left will help you write out a summary for your LinkedIn page if you've not got one. And if you're looking for some ideas for that headline, bit directly under your name, you could use something like this. And it's very telling when somebody has used an AI tool to generate these things, especially that headline. I'm sure there are people now that are thinking, oh, I've seen some people's headlines and they're really chunky. It's probably because of that. AI tool here called Crystal, which is a bit interesting as well. Again, I think these are all quite new, but things for you to kind of go off and explore if you want to. So Crystal will review somebody's profile and basically tell you how you should approach them. So if it was like a new business thing, you can see here, I'll circulate the slides and you can have a little look, but if you're interested. Finding connections. So I said about the beginning, you kind of almost only get out of this what you're willing to put in. And the same goes to the information that you share. So if you decide not to put your work experiences on there, you decide not to put much about your education, this is going to be very limited. But if you filled out your profile and you've updated it, go to kind of the My Network area and you'll get this prompt. It will show you and suggest people to connect with, which you'll likely know or be of interest. Business cards. I don't think I've seen a business card exchanged since COVID, but LinkedIn used to have a tool. It was called Card Munch. I faded it out here because they don't have it anymore. Instead, you could use the same feature has been kind of sold to Evernote, where you can actually take photos of business cards and then the app will find those people on LinkedIn for you. So you don't even have to search for anybody. Photograph, 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 photograph. And it'll give you the list of people and you just go connect, 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 connect. So something there for you to explore too. When we were talking about earlier about privacy settings and maybe trying to keep your profile almost as open as possible, or you're willing, you'll then get this information. So you'll be able to see who's viewed your profile. And in many cases, they might be people that you do want to connect with and that are quite relevant to what you do. On the desktop, if you go and view somebody's profile, on the right-hand side, it will show you the profiles of other people, the profiles of people that others had gone on to view as well. So if you spend a lot of time kind of researching and trying to find somebody that you really want to connect with, check that column. You can probably find, easily 4 or 5 others that you might want to connect with. This feature I mentioned briefly when I talked about creator mode, which is no longer there, but this feature is. And you can actually change the default button on your profile. So instead of it being connect, it can be follow. So if you get lots of kind of spam requests, people trying to connect with you that you really don't know, you can change that button to be a follow button and they can just follow your public updates. Simple as that. Using LinkedIn for free. If you do a LinkedIn search, eventually you'll hit a wall and it says you can only view more profiles if you're premium. The easiest way to kind of get around that, if you don't have budget for this, is actually do a Google search. You put in your keywords like this, put in LinkedIn, put in the area, and you can find pages and pages and pages of results of people to connect to. People often don't think of it like that, but you could use the same search string that I've written out here. And then building the right connections. So you can kind of segment your audience and make it as targeted as you want. So when doing those searches, you can search for people you know already, people you don't know already. You can search, as I've got here, by location, current company. School is a really interesting one. So if you're looking for a bit of an icebreaker, you could actually search the alumni of where, say, you went to school or university. So it's a really good way in. I've done it a number of times, but you can do that. Sorry, this is just an example here that I've just kind of popped in, so you can see the different filters here. What you have to do is you have to start with a basic search at the top before you get to this page, and then you can search and find people almost by going the other way around, and do a company search instead, and have a list of companies that you might be interested in working with. And again, these are just some of the filters that you can use. Screen grab here too. The other thing that you may want to consider is, if you know the name of a company that you are interested in working with already, go to that company page, click on people, and then locate the people you want to connect with that way. So almost reverse engineer what you're doing. LinkedIn groups. So not only are these great for kind of posting content in using, especially if you get the bottom one here, South Wales Business Contacts, over 28,000 members. So you could post a piece of content in there, and it will help that piece of content obviously be seen by more people. But what you can also do is, when you join a group, you can go to the members list of that group and find people that way, just like this. It's brilliant. Offers a great way in to kind of get a conversation started. Then you've got this. So not sure if you're aware of kind of the connection levels. So if somebody's a first degree connection, it's because you're connected with them. You're on their list. If they're a second degree connection, it's because you've got something in common. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a group, maybe it's something else, but you've got something, and it makes it easier to connect with that person because there's you've got that in place already. However, if you come across somebody's profile and they're a third degree connection, which means you don't have anything in common with them, and you're definitely not connected with them, have a look at their LinkedIn page and see what groups they're members of. If you then go and join the same group that they're a member of, they'll become a second degree contact, and thus makes it easier to message them and connect to them. LinkedIn events, these are on the rise as well. Do go check them out. So if you click to attend an event on LinkedIn, you can see the attendees list. You can even message the people that you're not even connected to. Look at some of the third degree ones on here. I can now connect to them or message them because I'm attending the same event as them. People don't often think about it, and then when you do go and connect to people, instead of just blindly sending a default connection request, if you can, where possible, try and personalize that message. Remind that person of how you know them, and they're more likely to accept that request. I've got some tips in here, which again may seem fairly basic, but you'll also recognize the ones on the right here where you might have had some of these yourselves. Somebody sends you a connection request. They say, I'm expanding my network. LinkedIn suggested that we connect. I really like your profile. Yeah, exactly. Just think, you don't want to be sending those messages because they're used by scammers, bots, all the time. Another hidden feature of LinkedIn, which they've tried to remove several times and then put back, is this. So you can export your contact data as well. I've got a word of warning on here around GDPR. And obviously when you export data, it can sometimes export people's personal data as well, such as personal email addresses, Gmails, Hotmails, and stuff like that, which you can't use. My view is you can't use that for business. It has to be a business email address. But if in doubt, I'm sure if you want to reach out to me and have a chat about it, or one of your colleagues, do that. So just to kind of finish there, really, just to kind of almost jump to the start with that profile audit, do a benchmark, note down those figures to see how your profile is performing at the moment, then go in, make the changes, and then see what a difference it will make. And if you don't have time, because I know lots of people on this call are very, very busy people, if at most you simply go to the Acuity Law company page and every now and again you share something that you feel would be relevant to your connections, as you've seen over the last 30 days, the numbers can absolutely fly as well. Thank you. I've got my contact details here, but I'll ask them to be circulated if you do have any follow-up questions. I'm around for a bit longer, so if anybody does have any questions, feel free to kind of pop them in the chat or unmute yourself, and we can have a chat. Thank you.